Sunday, long before the judge had devoured his rack of lamb, Vanessa Gray had offered her opinion. Sentence them both to an hour of community service and then issue a court order instructing the post office to return their original investment in full, she declared, revealing a common sense not always bestowed on the male of the species. To do him justice, the judge agreed with his spouse, although he told her that he would never get away with it. "Why not?" she asked. "Because of the 4 passports." Mr. Justice Gray was not surprised to find Mr. and Mrs. Haskins standing dutifully in the dock at 10 o'clock the following morning. After all, they were not criminals. The judge raised his head, stared down at them, and tried to look grave. "You have both pleaded guilty to the crimes of theft from a post office and of falsifying 4 passports. He didn't bother to add any adjectives such as evil, heinous, or even disgraceful, as he didn't consider them appropriate on this occasion. "You have therefore left me with no choice," he continued, "but to send you both to prison." The judge turned his attention to Chris Haskins. "You were obviously the instigator of this crime, and with that in mind, I sentence you to 3 years' imprisonment." Chris Haskins was unable to hide his surprise. His barrister had warned him to expect at least 5 years. Chris had to stop himself from saying, "Thank you, my lord." The judge then looked across at Mrs. Haskins. "I accept that your part in this conspiracy was possibly no more than an act of loyalty to your husband. However, you are well aware of the difference between right and wrong, and therefore I shall send you to prison for 1 year." "My lord," protested Chris Haskins. Mr. Justice Gray frowned for the first time. He was not in the habit of being interrupted while passing sentence. "Mr. Haskins, if it is your intention to appeal against my judgment—" "Oh, certainly not, my lord," said Chris Haskins, interrupting the judge for a second time. "I was just wondering if you would allow me to serve my wife's sentence." Mr. Justice Gray was so taken aback by the request that he couldn't think of a suitable reply to a question he had never been asked before. He banged his hammer, stood up, and quickly left the courtroom. An usher hurriedly shouted, "All rise." Chris and Sue first met in the playground of their local primary school in Cleethorpes, a seaside town on the east coast of England. Chris was standing in a queue, waiting for his third of a pint of milk, government regulation for all school children under the age of 16. Sue was the milk monitor. Her job was to make sure everyone received their correct allocation. As she handed over the little bottle to Chris, neither of them gave the other a second look. Sue was in the class above Chris, so they rarely came across each other during the day, except when Chris was standing in the milk queue. At the end of the year, Sue passed her 11+ and took up a place at the local grammar school. Chris was appointed the new milk monitor. The following September, he also passed his 11+ and joined Sue at Cleethorpes Grammar. They remained oblivious to each other throughout their school days, until Sue became head girl. After that, Chris couldn't help but notice her, because at the end of morning assembly she would read out the school notices for the day. Bossy was the adjective most often trotted out by the lads whenever Sue's name came up in conversation. Strange how women in positions of authority so often acquire the sobriquet bossy, while a man holding the same rank is somehow invested with qualities of leadership. When Sue left at the end of the year, Chris once again forgot all about her. He did not follow in her illustrious footsteps and become head boy, although he had a successful, by his standards, if somewhat uneventful, year. He played for the school's second 11 cricket team, came 5th in the cross-country match against Grimsby Grammar, and did well enough in his final exams for them to be unworthy of mention either way. No sooner had Chris left school than he received a letter from the Ministry of Defence, instructing him to report to his local recruiting office to sign up for a spell of national service, a 2-year compulsory period for all boys at the age of 18 when they had to serve in the armed forces. Chris's only choice in the matter was between the Army, the Royal Navy, or the Royal Air Force. He selected the RAF, and even spent a fleeting moment wondering what it might be like to be a jet pilot. Once Chris had passed his medical and filled in all the necessary forms at the local recruiting office, the duty sergeant handed him a rail pass to somewhere called Mablethorpe. He was to report to the